Hello and welcome to yet another update, the first update of 2025. Wow, it's been a year. And wow, it's been a great start to the year for me. It has been absolutely freezing. I've had a cold that's been not like debilitating, but just made me feel tired and run down the entire time, which was just exacerbated by like the fact that it's been like literal like 0 degrees C here for ages. I'm not used to that kind of temperature, and the fact that a lot of the recording stuff and the room that I do pretty much all the work in is outdoors really kind of yeah, it's just been rough. So I haven't managed to get a lot of stuff done, and I'm very sorry to the people on Patreon who I was like, I've made a bunch of there are decisions that I've made that have been bad, and then there are circumstances that have just not been great. So I wanted to talk about the things that I have done, which is admittedly not as much as I would like, but like I've still managed to get some things done. So one thing, hang on, I just need a drink to stay warm down here. It is it's pretty cold today. I've got a heater down here, but it takes like, I don't know, 3 hours to sort of heat the room. So one of the things that I've started work on is, well, actually, let me address a bunch of stuff that I had started work on that are still floating in purgatory. And at the moment, review for Alan Wake 2: The Lake House is something that I've got to write. It's something that I've started multiple times, and the problem is because I've changed. Well, I've not changed the way that I review, but I've decided to include a lot more things. And thanks to my brilliant idea of the queue, which I'm no longer doing, by the way, I'm not doing the queue anymore, just because I don't think that it works particularly well. The problem, the Alan Wake 2 Lake House thing has really been sort of the problem for some of the things, and it's sometimes when you start writing something, you just don't know where to begin. And I played it, I think, November, the Lake House, and the plan was to have it done by then, you know, to have it done soon after that, but because I ended up doing Dredge instead, and then I did Sharon's Staircase, and then I kind of had the option to do Nuclear Nightmare instead of the Lake House. I kind of just pushed the Lake House back until yeah, now when I start to write the Lake House, I'm kind of just it's very, very good, and it's going to be another high ranking one for sure. But I just kind of look at it, even though I've got like the game capture footage in front of me, I just sometimes just get like a writer's block sort of thing with it. And because I didn't know what to write for it at the time, I just kind of put it off. But because I was also doing the queue, I was like, well, I can't really work on anything else until I've done the one at the top of the list, which is the Lake House. So yeah, the queue was not a great idea for me trying to compartmentalize, you know, doing things. It's just not worked out. So I ended up writing Nuclear Nightmare, and literally, you know, I had 2 text windows open. One of them was the Lake House, which I'd sort of writ a little bit for, and then I just moved over to Nuclear Nightmare and was just typing paragraphs at a time, like really going through it. Like, and it just kind of is like that sometimes, where I just have a lot to say on one game because I've played a lot of it, and not much to say of another game, even though I think it's good. And, you know, sometimes trying to articulate ideas and stuff is kind of hard when you don't know really where to begin or what specific part of it to talk about, because of the way that I want to do reviews has been a lot more in-depth since Dredge was the first one technically, but Nuclear Nightmare is the first one that most people have seen. I just want to talk about more things. And actually Sharon's Staircase would have been probably the first one, but Sharon's Staircase was, I think, what I want to do is explain the impact of certain things more than I do. And that's something that I recognized I was doing in some of the older reviews that I put together while I was doing the Beginner's Guide too, because I went back to look at some of the reviews to because at the time I was going to include all of the reviews in the description, but it's just so long and so takes so much time that like you know, I was so burnt out after doing 14 hours of editing over 2 days that I was just like, I'm done. So but I did end up looking at some of the reviews, and I was just kind of I just got a little nostalgic at some of them, going like, you know, I really did kind of like some of the older reviews, you know, I did take a lot more time to explain the impact of certain things and why stuff would work and why stuff didn't, instead of just saying this does this, and this does this, which someone else pointed out in a comment the other day, going like, I feel like you're just reading out a list to me. And I was like, damn, you know, the Silent Hill 2 review, remake review has been pretty, it's kind of changed the channel in a way for me, or at least changed my outlook on how certain things are, because I kind of want better than what I ended up doing. And that led obviously to the why I don't like Silent Hill 2 remake thing on Patreon. And yeah, there was a lot to think about in that, and I still don't know whether I'm still trying to come to terms with it, really, I guess, at the end of the day. The fact that, like, objectively, the game is good, but, like, personally, I just don't like it. But, trying to explain exactly that has been pretty challenging, and I've made, like, multiple attempts at it, and none of them I really felt like were worth sharing. And, that's been a sort of ongoing theme for some of the writing that I've done. Yeah, one of the things that I've been struggling with mostly is I've started writing a lot of scripts, and some of them I'm more optimistic about than others, but some of them have just kind of trailed off, or like something has come up, and the multiple things that came up were just like Christmas. And, you know, I work in a retail-related environment, and let me just tell you that Christmas was not particularly great this year. It's been good in the past, but this year was especially bad. And I was just going home every day, unenthusiastic and tired. And on top of that, I was trying to do the Beginner's Guide 2, and then after that, I tried to get Nuclear Nightmare done. And it's just been, like, that particular period was pretty rough. And then immediately after that, I managed to get a cold from someone at work who was coughing and spluttering over everything, which... gotta love it when people do that. But that obviously did not help me very much, on top of the fact that it's been freezing cold around here. So it's just been a lot of things. You know, I made some mistakes for damn sure, like for thinking that I was going to improve what I was doing by trying to organize the way that the reviews are done, but that doesn't really work. Like, as I've noted in the past, like, the reason why last year's Halloween and stuff was so successful was just the fact that, like, I recorded loads and loads of games and then just did them as I wanted to do them, chose the ones that I was like, oh, I'm going to do this one now, and then, or I'm going to save that one for later, and that doesn't really work as well. That works a lot better with my way of doing things than, you know, say, putting them one after the other and forcing me to do one specific thing, which, like, I don't know, I guess I can't work like that, or I'm not very good at working like that. It makes too much sense, I guess, so that's been one thing that I've kind of struggled with. Anyway, to talk about the things that I have done, obviously, one of them is Dredge is the first, I'm just going to talk about this in general. Dredge is the first Halloween video, and I'm pretty pleased with it. And I kind of like the way that the new, well, not really the new, but like the better or more in-depth reviews are going, because Nuclear Nightmare and Dredge are both pretty good videos, in my opinion, for the way that I've been sort of deliberately letting more gameplay sink in and talking more about certain things. And for Dredge and Nuclear Nightmare specifically, they had I decided to go back to the game to record ambient tracks to let to have like the cold, snowy wind blowing blizzard sort of thing in the background of Nuclear Nightmare, and then downloading the day ambience or night ambience for Dredge, so that the whole review either sounds like the ocean for Dredge's case, or sounds like the Arctic tundra or whatever for Nuclear Nightmare. And I think that really kind of helps the ambiance of the reviews, and I've been pleased with that. That's just a minor thing, really, but that's just something that I went out of my way to do, that I've been very pleased with the results with. I'm kind of trying to lean more into making better thumbnails as well, but like that's limited pretty badly to, one, my Photoshop skills, and two, which are pretty limited already, and two, the kind of stuff that I'm working with, because sometimes I'm just, it takes me ages to cut something out of a screenshot, and then I'm not pleased with it, and people say that I have an eye for certain things, and I like to think that too, because, you know, when I used to do photography, it was like, you know, I always thought I was pretty good at it. But when it comes to trying to force that sort of thing on a you know, Photoshop page, it gets kind of hard. Like, there's something is either just like, oh, it's not the right angle, or that's not the right brightness, or that's not this, or that's not that, and there's not much you can do about it when you're working with just screenshots and text and stuff. So and like some of the early the early thumbnails for like 2017 and stuff are just terrible. They're just not very good. So yeah, I've been looking at redoing the thumbnails again because I've realized that I've already done them once. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I'm pleased with those two. Moving on to the stuff that I've actually done. One of the upcoming games is a game called Baby Blues Nightmare, which was sent to me by the developer. I've actually had multiple developers send games to me, and it's been that's just been more pressure because I said to them at the time that I wouldn't be able to do them until after November. It's January. Like the problem was that I had the Beginner's Guide 2 to do, and you know, anyway, I've gone into this. Basically, I just had to put them on hold, and they've been very patient. No one said anything nasty yet, but I'm sure their patience will run out eventually. But Baby Blues Nightmare was one of the first ones that I got, and essentially, it's made by the same people who made The Voidness, and I was incredibly enthusiastic on it based on that, because The Voidness is great. Like, it had some like issues here and there, but like that's not really a problem. You know, the stuff that I saw in the game was like, you know, nothing in comparison to the kind of problems, unfortunately, that I've experienced through Baby Blues Nightmare, which kind of controversially is almost everything except the horror. So there are some problems with the horror. It's only getting a 2 out of 5, mostly just because like the sound design has more problems than it has good points, and the gore doesn't make a great deal of sense, and the story is a bit kind of like it just doesn't inspire you because the game is unfortunately an hour long, and I rarely have to contact the developer to ask them questions after I've like been given the game. But I finished the game in an hour, and I was like, is the game meant to be an hour? Because I feel like I'm missing loads of things. Like, I saw some objectives in the list, and the game had loads and loads and loads of mechanics that it just never really used, or, you know, it kind of felt like the game was just, you know, I felt like I played a tech demo or something at the end of it, because it just suddenly ended. And, I mean, it suddenly went into an ending scene, and then, like, you walked through a thing, and then the game ended. And I think that's the only time that I've been, like, truly disappointed that a game was really short, or it felt just abrupt, just the thing to it. So I asked them about it, and they said that was right. And we're in talks at the moment as to what to do with the review. And I sent them a big list of, like, you know, the problems that I found through it, and, you know, the rest of the stuff, which I said, you know, loads of things were good, because it did, like, the atmosphere and scares are fantastic. But the real problem is just the fact I don't know what they want to do, because it's going to get a 2 out of 5, which isn't exactly a flattering score, but like, I would rather, you know, if they want to just take away what I've said to them and then work on the game, that would be great. I would really appreciate that. But if they have no intention of doing that and they want me to post the review as is, then I'm going to do that, but I'm not going to change what I'm going to say. You know, the only thing that I would say, I would still do a review of the game if they say they're going to do something with it, but I wouldn't do it until, like, they've come back to me and say that they've changed it, and then I would probably just play it again. Honestly, I'm at a point where I would rather they worked on the game and then, like, release some updates or something to work towards, you know, what could be a better game. Not that I'm saying that, like, my particular, you know, my thoughts towards it are going to, like, drastically increase the quality of the game, but, like, because it's getting quite a few positive reviews I looked at on the store Steam page, but in my opinion, it just ends really abruptly. Like, I missed loads and loads of mechanics because they weren't exactly presented to me in the game, and some of them just didn't really seem to serve a great deal of purpose when I did use them. Like, so I kind of just, you know, I want them to understand that if they have no intention to change the game, then I'll just post the review as is, because I care, as much as I appreciate that they sent me their game to review, I care more about people who are interested in buying the game than, you know, a developer's feelings, because, you know, whilst I like them, it's the integrity of the review that matters the most. So I'd rather, like, if they are going to go off and do stuff with it, then I won't post a review and then they can go and do stuff with it, or I'll, like, wait until they come back and say that they're going to do something and then, you know, amend parts of the review to say that this will possibly change in the future, because it's not in early access. The game is fully released, but, like, I can't tell whether they're going to do updates or not. So, like, the game's been a bit... That one's been up in the air, unfortunately. Another one that I've been doing is... I played a bit of The Last Door. I haven't finished playing that one, so there's not really much to talk about there. I kind of got distracted by other things once I gave up on the queue. Late Homework, however, is a game that I saw that was made by the same developer as Interior Worlds that I played also at last year's Halloween, and I loved Interior Worlds. I thought it was really good. It probably got, like, I think it was like the least viewed video for last year's Halloween, but I really liked it. So when I came to see that they made another game and it was more of a survival horror game than Interior Worlds was, I was thrilled, and I played it and it was really good. It was actually very, very good. It still has that kind of almost relaxing feel to some of it, but they've done such a good job with, like, the survival horror camera angles, and I think the only criticisms I would really have for it, I think, are just that it's too easy to avoid the main enemy, but avoiding the main enemy has, like, nothing to do with, like, the level of fear in the game, because it does a really good job with, like, its atmosphere, even if its scares can sometimes, I don't know, sometimes trail off. I mean, every time the game was deliberately trying to, like, do a jump scare or scare me, it worked. Like, and when I saw the enemy running towards me, that worked. But I would say the thing that got me, the thing that let me down the most was the fact that it was pretty easy to get away from the enemy. Sorry, I'm still unwell. So, yeah, it was a really, really good game. Its atmosphere was very, very good. Loved it. Loved the soundtrack too, actually. That was very good, from what I remember. And that's one that I haven't actually started writing yet, but I've got lots of good things to say about that when I decide to do it. That's just the games that I've been working on. Actually, no, there was another one called... Hang on, let me look up the name for this one. This one was another one that was sent to me by the developers. Kizuyami. This was a very short game, and it was pretty bizarre. It was I could not tell you really what happened in that game, to be frankly honest. It was very, very unique. It was a low-resolution game where you sort of, like, I walked down a street and went into a random house, and I was kind of confused as to whether this was actually the house I was meant to go into or not, but, like, stuff happened, and, like, it had a lot of weird... most of it was kind of hard to see because the resolution was deliberately very low, and I didn't understand how or what I was doing through some of it, and it was always frightening to sort of mess around with things you don't understand and then have, like, the walls start closing in on you like an Indiana Jones trap or something. And the game did pretty good with its scripted events and stuff as well. And there was loads of unsettling things that just happened in the game for literally no apparent reason. And I really liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's obviously not gonna get any points for story because if there was one in there, I couldn't figure it out. But the rest of the game was great. Like, I've got no problems with it. It's very, very short, so it took me about literally like half an hour to finish it. But you know, for £2, I think you can do worse, really. Interrupting myself in the middle of the update to bring you another update. There were a bunch of other games that I've played. I've played 5 or 6 more for the 100 free horror games. One of them was a really bizarre game called The Children of Clay. That was a stop motion game that was more like a point and click adventure. It was very brief, but it was very good. I think maybe the puzzle aspects for it were a bit it was a bit cryptic. And for being such a short experience with not much to fill the gaps, it was a bit slow. I also played a bit of Dismantled, but that's a really hard game, and I've not had very much luck with it at the moment. It's basically a first-person Resident Evil style game within with like the fixed save points, and I haven't found one yet. So I played quite a lot of that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put that one on YouTube. I can just play the neutered version of the game, but I'd rather not. So I don't think I'll be able to show that one on YouTube, just because like the sprite work that was used in the middle, because it's using the Doom engine, but it's just such an unpleasant game in terms of the actual gore and artwork, where like people just they're like, some people are like in drawn version of like saw traps and stuff, and yeah, some of it's really nasty. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to show that one. The fear level is actually pretty high in that one because of how the singular save point seems to work. And again, I played the game for like 40 minutes. I died once and restarted, so probably some time less than that. But it was pretty interesting, and I'm looking forward to having another go at that, because I'm actually as someone who's made Doom maps before, I'm actually very impressed with it. So yeah, that's another one that I'm looking forward to covering at some point once I play far enough into the game, or finish it hopefully. But yeah, I won't be able to talk about that on on YouTube. I don't think that I'm definitely not going to be able to show some of the stuff, so that might end up being a Patreon only review. But that's that. So that might be my first, because I don't think I've ever encountered anything that's like just too nasty to actually put on YouTube, but that is pretty bad. So yeah, there's that. I've also been working towards the original idea that I had last time I spoke about something, which was the horror origins sort of thing, where we go back and talk about like how the very first horror games generated fear in like the way that they were, in the primitive way that they could, in a way. So like you have like the Magnavox Odyssey game Haunted House, which was basically just like a white light that would bounce around on the screen, and you put an overlay over your television to make it look like a haunted house, and the way that you scared people was just by yelling boo at them after you got them. And I wanted to work on stuff like that and talk about how the limitations of such technology could lead to, more innovative things than we really use nowadays. And I played a bit of... Obviously, I don't have a Magnavox Odyssey. That's an incredibly expensive purchase for a single video that I'm never going to play, really, outside of that. I do have like some Atari games I could talk about, but I don't think it's going to be the same. So, but that and Kadath, I think it's how it's pronounced, which is a Lovecraftian text adventure where you explore this sort of bizarre Lovecraftian place, and I didn't play very far into it. I was just to get a basic gist of it, and the writing's brilliant. Like going through the actual areas and like having it all written and described to you via text was fascinating, but actually like playing the game was a bit of a chore because of how limited you are in your interactivity with the world. Like the world itself is painted directly into your mind via these words, which is a fantastic way to really think about like how horror can be presented. Is there is no greater weaver of dreams than your own imagination, and just a way of how some things are written can really really do a very good job of painting a very vivid image in your mind. But when the interactivity of such a thing is limited to such a degree, then like it's just that's something else. So that was another one to talk about. But yeah, I just wanted to interrupt myself in the middle of this to talk about that and the things that I've been doing that I completely forgot to mention. I don't think there are any more that I haven't brought up, but I don't know. I've ended up getting quite a few games, but I haven't really got around to playing a great deal of them at the moment. There's been a lot of adjustments to the work computer to try and do things because of how difficult Stalker 2 is to run. I haven't really done any of that, which has been pretty disappointing. I've played a little bit of it, but I can't get the gameplay to look good enough to my standards, and it's just been difficult, so I don't know when I'm going to get around to do that. I was really hoping to do that sooner rather than later, but now I'm not even doing it at all the way it's going. But, you know, I can always fix that in the future, and I do kind of want to wait for more patches anyway, so, yeah, there's that. Anyway, back to me. I did play another one that was sent to me by the developers, and it was called Red Rum, or Murder backwards. And I played half an hour of that, and I couldn't tell if I accidentally quit it out of the game or it crashed. But I was kind of confused and haven't been back to it since. I'm not gonna lie, it was not the best game. It had a lot of... The jump scares when they came were very, very impactful, but like they were also very predictable, and it was mostly a case of even though you know it's coming, it still manages to get you. Which I always like that. I like that quite a lot when that happens in a game. But the problem was it was very, very obvious that you were going to get jump scared, but it didn't manage to stop the game from being like... I think after maybe like the third time where you could kind of see that there was going to be a jump scare soon, did the thing sort of wear off? I'm sure other people will probably find that sooner once they realize how that sort of mechanic works. But yeah, that was all right. I haven't got around to... I need to replay that one basically again, but to see if I've accidentally crashed the game or if there is more. But it seems like the game is generally pretty short based on the playtime of other people in the review section. But I just wanted to make sure if it was stable or not. But yeah, that's another one. I've had like 2 or 3 more requests since then, and I haven't played some of theirs yet. But that's one that I've got to do as well. That's it, I think, for the normal games. Let's talk about some of the long scripts that I've been writing. The one that I'm looking forward to the most is actually the one that I decided to do on enemy design. Now, at the end of the psychological horror, the end of the survival horror video, the previous one, which would have been what was it called? Vulnerability or something like that. I can't remember the name of my own video. I said that I was going to do one on enemy design, and I have decided to really go into like the ins and outs of enemy design, with everything from the way that they appear and the way that their characterization reflects the way that they look. So like when you understand the lore of something like the Amnesia Grunts, you know that they were like stitched together by Alexander, and when you look at the Amnesia Grunts, they look like they've been stitched together, and that adds a different layer to the thing. On top of just being repulsive on its own, you know the fact that they were assembled, which is just nasty in its own way. And I decided to include like multiple different examples for stuff like that, and then I got into like the talking about the symbolism of things like Pyramid Head and Michael Myers' mask, because there were a lot of questions that I decided to include. There's a lot of questions that you get because of like, why does Michael Myers wear a mask? Like, what possible reasons could he have to use it, and what does it represent? And I kind of argued that one of the things that it represented was mostly that it was a cold and unfeeling, sort of representation of a person without actually having, a blank person's face. It was just, it's the same thing for like Pyramid Head. You can't tell what it's feeling, and that gives you a sense of uncertainty. Like, you don't know what, when Pyramid Head's does seem to generally be trying to hurt James, but at the same time it also does a bunch of odd things and doesn't always take advantage of the situation when it could. So like, but when you see the giant pyramid head, you don't really know what you're getting from that, and I think that adds another layer of like uncertainty that you would get with something along those lines. So that's another thing that I was talking about. I also, this is all in the same video, because I wanted to really go in and out. I wanted to go into this one pretty hard. the other aspects I wanted to talk about was what an enemy can do, as in like its abilities and stuff that makes it frightening. Because like a frightening antagonist is really good as long as they can actually back up that level of fear from the way that they look in the way that they act. So like if you could just, you know, mess with the alien from Alien Isolation by hiding under tables and it could never find you, then, you know, a great deal of its fantastic design has just gone completely to waste. But because the alien in Alien Isolation can do such a good job of like grabbing you in vents and lifting you up off the ground and like ripping open like your lockers and pulling you out and doing all sorts of things that you either don't expect or like underestimate it, then it is frightening. Like the fact that there is no exploit that you could possibly make to abuse the, you know, the AI in, you know, something like that. But I also wanted to do more looks at more typical types of enemies, and it was actually going to involve me playing games outside of the horror spectrum, because I wanted to talk about like the enemy design in like Dark Souls 3 because of how that also ties in with the lore of certain characters, because there was a lot of gnarly enemies in Dark Souls 3 that just sort of are very unpleasant to look at and have like a reason for being that way, which is ties into the first part. But I haven't written any of those bits in yet because I'm still on the fence as to whether to include them or not. But I think it would be cool, but I don't want to go too far out of the realms of horror, so that was kind of, you know, that's in there. And I think the final part was the impact that they make and stuff like that, where like the, you know, with a lot of antagonists, the thing about them is the impact that they have at the end of the day, like where all of it is combined to make something good, instead of like, you know, they're good but they can't do this, or they're all right but they're not very frightening to look at, or like, you know, there are a lot of things that are presented in a way that makes them not as good as they could be. And that's the final part of the video, was just to address that, to be like, basically, you know, an antagonist is the sum of its parts, and as long as it's, you know, I think for the majority of them, as long as they can live up to the expectations set by like the specific standards of like, you know, their backstory, their appearance, what they can do, and how well they do it, is sort of, you know, I think that's what makes a great antagonist. So that's that video, and I've written a lot. I've written a lot, but I still haven't got to most of the most interesting parts. So at the moment, it's about the length of a normal review, and I mean, like, there's a lot. Actually, it's probably longer than a normal review, but and I still haven't got to like parts 2 or 3, but of course, like, they're all going to be in the same video, so the video is going to take quite a while to make, but eventually it'll be you know, pretty long, hopefully. So there's that. I haven't done much work for the psychological horror part 2 video, because I was looking at what I was doing, and I kind of decided that well, I had a concern that I was basically repeating myself, which is something that I will probably do multiple times. I struggle with that. Struggle with that sometimes. And yeah, there's a lot of things that I've kind of looked at over the years that are pretty much summed up much better in earlier videos, or just, you know, I nailed it the first time and don't really need to go over them again. Some of them are just like that. So stuff like the atmosphere video is still probably the gold standard for talking about atmosphere. I've not really done any better than that, and I don't think I ever will. So you know, I don't believe too strongly in like talking about every single aspect of something, even though that's what I'm doing. For certain things that are best explained with, like, you know, a short, sweet explanation of what it does, and like, as long as I've got it down, that's it. So yeah, there's some of the problems that I was having with the psychological horror part 2 video is basically that I had already spoken about them. I was supposed to do a New Year's video, but yeah, it was so unpleasant to be down here to try and do that I have not done the New Year's video, which was just going to be like, you know, the same kind of thing as the last one, where I was talking about stuff and upcoming things, and it was basically just going to be an update video, but like I've had to just kind of let that go now. It's like it's getting well past. I already posted Nuclear Nightmare as the first video of the year, so like, you know, it's been a bit too late now. So yeah, I've been working on a few things. There was hang on, let me have a little look to make sure I'm not missing anything, because I haven't actually made a list this time. I'm just waffling. Oh yeah, there was a video on Familiarity that I was going to look at. There was a video on Reality, which was the psychological horror part 2. I think that was about it. The Familiarity one was talking about how desensitization and certain things will add together to basically render a game less frightening because of how similar it can be to other things. I've been having lots of different ideas for videos, and one of the, like another one that I was having, I'm probably not going to go ahead with this one. I've written quite a bit of it, but I don't think it's a video that I'll end up posting unless, you know, I don't think it's material at the moment. Another one that I was going to talk about was how the more familiar you are with game design, the less frightening some games can be, because of very obvious seams in design and kind of deliberate cues that you can get by playing a lot of games, that you understand how certain things are going to work and how certain things will work, and how the big problem, I guess, is that a lot of game developers don't really do a great deal to try and subvert that kind of thing. And I was going to talk about how gameplay, horror derived from the gameplay is infinitely better than, you know, what a lot of games really end up being, which is just like, you're given a very basic goal of like, find this or do that, and then the horror happens to you along the way, or like the horror happens in a frightening place, or, you know. But like when the game is like, what was that game? Carcass, where like the goal is to do something that's horrifying, then like, you know, the fear is generated in a way that, you know, inflicts dread based on the task rather than dread based on the environment. And that was another one. I haven't even started writing that yet, but that was another idea that I've had that I've wanted to do. Like I feel like because I've covered a lot of the more basic ideas in some of the videos last year and the year before, that like some of the ones that I'm going to be doing now are going to be quite out there, or like dealing with more abstract ideas, which I'm pleased to do, really, because one of the videos that I think about the most that I'm pleased with is Soma the Ark, because I don't really tend to think too much into stories of games, but when I do think about them, you know, I think that sometimes I have a good idea, and I'm you know, a lot of times I don't, but sometimes I'm like, I didn't think about this that way, and that sometimes leads to a video like Soma the Ark, which is not particularly long, but it is kind of interesting, and I would like to do stuff like that, but you know, it's hard to kind of come up with that sort of thing. Like, I have these nagging questions when I play the game, but after I finish playing it, a lot of them just go away. So, yeah, that's that. There's a few things coming up. It's been honestly, it's been not a particularly great time. The last couple of weeks have been pretty rough, and Christmas was, again, pretty hard. Christmas itself was fine, but like the days leading up to it were just a nightmare. So yeah, it's been difficult, and I've not helped it much, but hopefully I'll be able to get back on track soon. I'm not going to be staying down here much longer at the moment. The temperature is it's pretty damn cold. So yeah, that's that for now. I'll hopefully have late homework written and hopefully some of the other scripts written up on Patreon, but that's about all I can promise at the moment. The temperature and like how I felt have kind of put a dampener on forcing myself to get things done. So, yeah, that's it. I hope everyone else has had a good Christmas, or at least a better Christmas than me. I feel like the bar's pretty low there, but I'm hoping everyone else cleared it. And a good New Year's and everything, and let's hope that 2025 is a lot better than 2024, which for the channel standards, that's a fairly high bar in my opinion to try and pass, but we'll give it a good go. So thank you for supporting, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.